Welcome to Film Phreeks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And here, this is going to be an audio review that we are doing of Gerald's game, which is directed by Mike Flanagan, and this is based on a Stephen King novel, the same name, that was released in 1992. And this film stars Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood. Now a little backstory. For those of you who have been following our channel, we actually did a Stephen King marathon retrospective where that's available on SoundCloud and our YouTube channel, but you're welcome to check out, where we discussed many of the different adaptations of Stephen King. And this film was actually the first one that came out this year that was actually not, well, instead of going theatrical, it went straight to Netflix.
Yeah. And also, we didn't really hear much about it until it was like one of those Netflix. Generally, you see this with Netflix where they come out kind of like the last second trailers of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
But anyways, I seen the trailers of it, looked interesting. But what got me want to watch is, it's been a great year for Stephen King so far.
Well, we've had about 3 other Stephen King adaptations this year as well.
I've been hearing a lot of hype for this.
Yeah, me too. I've heard a lot of great things about it. It's very rare that Netflix original films that I hear about are actually good necessarily. Occasionally I come across them. I just kind of watch them. I think of watching them at a later time because there's not always one that really piques my interest that much unless it's something that really gets me interested. Like earlier,
I know it. What would you think? 2016? Do you think that Netflix movie started hyping up?
Yeah, because in the last year there were 2 films that I watched that came on that I actually got more into watching more of the original shows, or watching more of the original stuff after watching movies like, The Do-Over and that other one, The Fundamentals of Caring. It got me more interested of what other series they could do, because I also noticed with Netflix was they're the independent type of go-to when it comes to movies.
Well, the thing is with Netflix, I remember back in the day, they made some really low budgety stuff, but whenever they started taking care of Adam Sandler for a while, I noticed that the movies started looking theoretical, and it just seems like their movies are looking like they're theater-made movies, like big box office.
Yeah.
So it seems like Netflix is growing, and they're distributing a lot of movies every year now.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and what piqued my interest with this one was that since this is basically the year of Stephen King's movies, because earlier this year we had The Dark Tower, which was released in theaters. We also had It, which skyrocketed across theaters. And now we have Gerald's Game, and then we're also going to be getting other ones coming out, like 1922.
Well, don't forget Mr. Mercedes.
Well, yeah, Mr. Mercedes, which is I'm still currently watching, that me and him are going to be reviewing as well, hopefully. And so with this one, it got me curious because I like these type of films, because basically this film is about a couple played by Carla Gugino and Bruce Greenwood who go to this lake house for the romantic weekend, and they basically are going through marriage problems and stuff, and an attempt to basically he wants to, the main Bruce Greenwood's character Gerald is wanting to basically play a game with his wife.
Well, he's trying to spice up their marriage.
Yeah,
like you said, they're going through problems.
Yeah, and he wants to play do some domination, or not, well, some kinky shit basically. And when they're having sex, when he wants to have sex with her, he wants to basically use handcuffs on her and then get all dirty with her. And I really don't want to go into detail because there's a lot with this movie I can't really spoil.
Yeah, I mean, do you think what game he's playing, you think that would spoil it?
Well, I mean, basically, if you've seen the trailer, something happens to where he basically dies, and the rest of the film is up to her, because she is still chained up when he dies after they have an argument about her not wanting to go through with it. He basically ends up dying of a heart attack, and the rest of the film deals with her trying to escape, because she's chained up, and she, not only that, but also where they're staying at, the door's wide open, and basically there's no one around that can hear her.
They're like 5 miles away from the nearest house.
Yeah.
So.
And so
you're talking about like a cabin in the woods type feel.
Yeah, and in a way, this movie actually really got me interested too, because I like these type of one setting type movies where the whole film takes place in one setting, basically. Like, remember how you...
And it's also a survival game too.
Yeah, like, I love movies where you're able to push the limits of how much someone can survive on their own, like in a one location, basically.
Yes.
And so, because we've had, I mean, in a way, this is kind of like the story itself is kind of like similar to like how in... Well, I'm just saying, like, how it's similar to Misery, and how in that film, James Caan was basically bedridden the whole time, and he had to escape. I mean, it's a little... I mean, it's different in that this entire film, she's chained up the entire movie.
Yeah.
But with this one, also, not going to go into detail, but it also has quite a mixture of other things that we've seen, too, like stuff involving things like Cujo. And there's even, I don't know, a reference. There's even a reference of it at one point.
There's a reference in this movie where they bring up Cujo.
Yeah. And then there's also, this also kind of has like a split mentality as well from earlier this year.
It's like pretty much takes a turn that I, keep in mind, him or I never read the book, so we don't know jack about this story. This is probably, I didn't even know this existed, and I'm a big Stephen King fan. I just don't read books that often, but this took a turn that I didn't even see coming, really.
Yeah, and you know what?
Psychological approach.
Yeah, I really think this movie is very strong as far as it being on a psychological level, because for about the first hour and a half, the film does, it does basically, you know, have a psychological... It is a straight survivor film, but as it goes along, it actually does something where it's kind of... It plays more of a psychological approach.
Yeah.
Because it goes into things that you actually get to see actual backstory involving Carla Gugino's character and stuff that links to her into the plot, basically. That we won't go... That when they go into detail, it's pretty disturbing, actually.
It is a very disturbing what happened to her, but it's something I did expect from Stephen King, so... But I didn't see coming. This movie does its survival, but it also does its own thing, another psychological part that you didn't see coming, and it's... That part just threw me off. I'm like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah, but I can honestly...
It's a pretty interesting movie. It was a weird movie, but pretty interesting.
Yeah, I will say that I did enjoy the film. It's definitely has its...
I did enjoy it.
It definitely has its... It's certainly not my favorite adaptation of Stephen King's movies as far as this year, but I thought it was really good. Like, for my pros, I did highly enjoy Carla Gugino's performance. I think that she really carries this film a lot. And
yeah, she carries this film. I like both actors.
Yeah, I like her and Bruce Greenwood.
The actor and actress, they both did phenomenal.
Yeah, Bruce Greenwood as well. You know, I always like seeing him in a lot of films, and, you know, it just always, you know, ever since the 90s, I've always been a fan of his work. And, you know, I also enjoy the dynamic between them and how they're going through, like, they're kind of playing mind games throughout. And
I love the mind game playing, where it's kind of like, you know, kind of like, see, it's kind of hard to talk about without spoiling it, but you get what I'm saying with him and her.
Yeah, that's what there's a reason why they call it Gerald's game, basically.
The Ulta mindset is what I like to say. I did enjoy the hell out of that. I mean, this is a Netflix series, you know, like, it was released on Netflix. This movie looked really theatrical, and its cinematography was really clear-cut.
Yeah, and you know what? That lake house that they're at, it kind of looked like, you know, something out of, well, not quite as impressive as that lake house your parents had from, or your family owns out in Gone Girl.
Ozarks.
Yeah. But
here's the thing. That lake house they're at, you know, you didn't really see much of the lake out there, but it kind of reminded me with that setting, kind of reminded me of watching Secret Window. Yeah,
that, or like, I was going to also think of, that, yeah, because the whole, the ocean, the water next to it, and the fact that in that film, too, you also had someone who was basically, you know, spending time in that house. And also, in speaking of Secret Window, there's actually parts in this film that are reminiscent of that movie as well. That when you watch it, you'll see it.
I knew that the way that was shooting, I knew that's what it looked like.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
There's a movie I'm like, oh yeah, Secret Window, and I love that movie.
Yeah, and that was also based on Stephen King.
Yeah,
but
one of his work.
But another thing too that I highly enjoyed was there's basically there's disturbing things that are also happening at the same time. Like the reason why we kind of brought up Cujo earlier is because throughout the entire film, there's basically a dog that is chewing on.
He's been starving.
Yeah.
And he kind of he kind of like needs like food, and he starts. I mean, kind of chewing on the dude. That's just a little minor spoiler. It ain't really much of a spoiler because it's not spoiling the story itself. But I will tell you, when it showed that, and I give that a pro, it was pretty gruesome.
Yeah, it was definitely, and plus, this film actually pushes the boundaries a lot of how much someone can do to survive. Because man, Carlo Gugino goes through so much hell in this movie. Like you can see
especially that ending near the ending with the handcuff scene. Oh, I was like, oh. Man.
Yeah, like, I mean, it gets so. It actually made me squirm in some parts when when shit gets really real toward the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, there's really not much we can really go into detail because it is a very straight like survival type movie. But when you see more of it, it's something that you can kind of.
It's also one of those weird movies where you can't really go into the plot itself because with this being a spoiler free, this is one of those rare movies you can't say but 3 words and then you feel like you're gonna spoil it. This movie like has so much going on for it that I mean, if we really talk about anything else, it's just spoiling.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So to kind of keep it at a minimum, I do highly enjoy the performances, and I love the way it's shot with the the theatrical look, and I love the whole psychological feel of it because this is also the same director who also did that movie Ouija Origins of Evil from last year, which I thought was pretty good. And
I read an article that this director he's actually been really like he was a big fan of the book.
Yeah,
he's been really wanting to make this for like 20 years or some shit. So something like that I was reading earlier, and this is like one of his projects he's been dying to do, and he got it.
Yeah, and he also directed a film a few years ago called Oculus that used a similar way of direction where. It uses that whole secret window thing I was telling you about earlier. So he basically used a similar technique in this film like he did in that movie.
Yeah.
So I did enjoy that, and it does quite take it does have quite its twists and turns toward the end too that I didn't see coming, and it does leave you it really interpreting a lot of things that are like happening with her throughout the movie.
Now, did you notice how like they started doing kind of like an artsy thing at the same time?
Yeah, that's what it kind of had like I'm not going to spoil anything again, but there actually is a minor like Twin Peaks kind of feel to the movie as well, because there's a guy that's in this film that's also in that show as well, and it's almost like he's playing that same character. I'm not going to tell you which actor it is, but there's an actor from Twin Peaks that's in this.
Yeah.
And it was like, wow, I feel like I'm watching another episode of Twin Peaks or something. But yeah.
Anyways,
to basically, if if I had any cons, I would say that as much as to be honest, like I don't really have much cons with this one. To be honest, like I'd say maybe it could have. I think it probably would have worked maybe better a little bit on the ending a little better. At least keep it like a more ambiguous ending type that makes you kind of think more.
I thought it could have done an ambiguous ending myself. I mean, when you get to pretty much the ending, you kind of get like an extended ending of a happy ending or however you want to put it.
Yeah,
it felt like that. It felt like because whenever like shit ends, you think, the next scene we're going to see the final, like her close it out and that's it. That scene does drag a little bit because it goes on for like 10 minutes more.
Yeah, and while I do appreciate the change they're doing, it did kind of feel... It's one of those endings where you watch it and you're like, this feels like it's from a completely different film for some reason. Like, it connects throughout the rest of the movie, but it feels like it could have been like its own movie in those last 10 minutes.
I know it does. It takes a different turn. I mean, again, we're not familiar with the book, so we can't, kind of say, oh, they shouldn't have done that, and then come to find out it's in the book. But I thought that it was really good. My cons was I felt like since it's always cool to see somebody add stuff to the story, you never want to see something verbatim.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this story is really verbatim from the book.
Well,
but if it is or isn't, I would like to see that director could have added more stuff to it. Maybe put some more brutality into when she's tied to the bed.
Yeah, I think that they could have maybe upped the stakes higher a little more, to kind of put more things at risk, kind of do like a whole Revenant type feel of it, where you see a lot more damage to her. But for what they do with it, I still appreciated a lot of the carnage that happened.
Yeah, it's still, again, it's nothing that's terrible flaws that we have. It's just something we would like to add to the story.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
I felt like you could have added more stuff, but it still was pretty good.
Yeah, and I would say, like, out of the Stephen King films that have come out this year, I'd say this one is, like, kind of in the middle, it being my favorite, the second one being...
It's my favorite.
Yeah, the second one being this one, and then you have, like, Dark Tower, like, on number 3. Now, I can't judge Mr. Mercedes, but since that's a TV series, that would have to be separate.
Yeah.
So, but overall, I'm going to give this film probably an 8.5 out of 10.
Okay. I didn't have much flaws like with him, but I also grade on the entertainment I had. And with the entertainment, I think it's only worthy of an 8 out of 10. It was still good, but I think it was. I just don't think it's, not 9 or 9.5, because it's something I also grade on if it's rewatchability. Like if I'm going to keep going back to it, keep going back to it, so that good. It wasn't like that with me. Entertainment level, I just say it's worth of an 8 out of 10, but it is a good recommend for people to watch.
Yeah, it's definitely. And if you like Stephen King, I've heard even that for those who have read the book, that this is quite close. There are some things left out of it, but it does keep the overall strengths from the book, from what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I heard too.
So for those, so that's pretty much my thoughts on Gerald's Game. For those of you who have also watched Gerald's Game and read the book as well, let us know in the comments below what you thought of it. And if you like what you see here, you can also feel free to like and subscribe. And feel free to check out some of our other reviews of Stephen King and some of our other reviews as well. And we'll be seeing you here on our next one. We'll see you later.
Later.